Now, the battle for Bumi reached a dramatic climax yesterday in this shareholders showdown. Nat Rothschild tried to oust board members, including its chief executive and its chairman. Shareholders did vote to stick by them. Chief Executive Nick von Schirnding joins us now today. First interview, Nick. Thank you for talking to us here on Bloomberg. How do you feel?
Well, I think it's a good outcome, obviously, for the board. I think, to be honest with you, there are no winners here. This was a long, very extended, fight over 2 months. A very distracting one for me personally. We have a lot of key issues to focus on, which I want to progress as soon as we can. But I think there were two important points that came out of this vote. Firstly, if you exclude the concert parties in this, both the concert party with Nat Rothschild and the concert party with Borneo joint venture, you will see that actually the vote against putting Nat Rothschild on the board was 87%. And that sends a very clear message. And what is that message? That is that his highly confrontational and public approach to all kinds of matters here isn't supported by the shareholders. The second message it gives is that the support for a lot of the board members, but in particular myself, which is 81%, is not. I don't take that as a pat on the back, but it certainly is a mandate to get on with things and effect a separation.
But on the matter of a mandate, Nick, Nat Rothschild did also say after the vote yesterday that about 2/3 of non-aligned shareholders voted against the board. Is that a mandate when 2/3 of non-aligned shareholders voted against the board, or is that not true?
I would dispute that.
Okay.
And I don't want to get into figures here, but 25 out of 32 long-only institutions in the UK supported the board. That says everything. And again, I go back to when I first took over this job and when I first appeared on your program a few weeks ago. My mandate is very clear, particularly after yesterday. One, it's to effect a separation from this troubled asset, Bumi Resources, and the Bakries. And we have a firm plan, a clear one, and $50 million in escrow. Secondly, it's to focus on the business that we have at hand, which is Bakrie. It's a great operating subsidiary. We have a lot to do. We've already made a number of changes, and I can go through those. But there's a great future for us once we effect the separation, and that's the key priority for us.
I'll let Olivia ask about your plans next. Before I get to Olivia, Nick, just a final question on the day after. Do you personally feel vindicated? Because the man who set up the company did say that he didn't think you were the right man for the job. Do you feel personally vindicated today? What's it like having the threat of losing your job, losing your role as chief executive over the last month?
Well, I think at the end of the day, shareholders need to decide what they want. As I've said before, I have 25 years of experience in the mining industry. I've worked very closely over the last almost 2 years with all of the Indonesian stakeholders in Bumi. I spent quite a lot of time in Indonesia. And you've got to understand these issues. They're not simple. And we've got quite a complex set of arrangements to get through. So I'm very clear about that. So, yeah, I mean, I do see it as a mandate to get on with things by our shareholders.
Nick, let's bring in Olivia, who, of course, has been following this story right from the start. She, of course, is in New York. Olivia.
Hi, Nick. Well, I did just hear you say that 25 out of 32 independent shareholders did back the current board to stay on. But, of course, this share sale by the Rothschild Group did actually change the math and really turn the tide, tip the scales in favor of the current board. It meant that Rothschild would have to win a lot more votes to actually succeed yesterday. Was that share sale a strategic move?
Well, it was a requirement by the takeover panel for this institution, Recapital, to sell down their holding. Something, in fact, that Nat Rothschild publicly, actively supported. So it was very much in line with that. We've got 3 great new shareholders. We've got a fund based out of the US called Avenue. They're the largest of the new independent shareholders and will become our largest independent shareholder going forward. I've already had talks with them yesterday since they're becoming our newest, largest shareholder. Argyle, which is a fund based in Hong Kong, and then another fund based in Indonesia, owned by a media tycoon.
What do you feel are the prospects for the business now going forward? You know, many analysts say the outlook for coal is certainly uncertain, you could say. What are the prospects now? Will the share price ever recover to the level at which it went public?
Look, I can't promise that, because obviously the fundamental economics have changed, because the coal price was very different to what it was 2 years ago. I think we're seeing some recovery in the coal price. You know, that certainly has had a helpful impact for us. You're seeing an impact on US coal exports into Asia, both Appalachian and Powder River Basin. Those are exporting into Asia at a loss. So we hope that will dry up. And yeah, I mean, at $95 Newcastle benchmark, that's a much better price than we've seen recently.
Nick, let's talk about what happens next. As you said, it clears the way for you to proceed with this deal, to split from the family. Let's talk what happens. When are you going to seek investors' approval first?
Well, we obviously need to now move to the next stage with the Bakries, which is the sale and purchase agreement, and we expect to complete that over the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's definite in the next couple of weeks.
That is indeed.
Yes.
And then we will need to publish our final audited results, which come in mid-March. So once we've published those, we will then issue our circular and put it to a vote in hopefully late April, early May.
You're confident that's not going to be a problem?
Well, I can't see why, because I mean, you know, the one clear message from every single institutional shareholder I have talked to and met with, including Nat Rothschild, is we need to effect the separation. Okay, it's the only way forward. So I can't believe that anybody would want to turn down a $600 million deal.
Will Nat Rothschild support you, do you think? I mean, he hasn't said yet whether he'll support it.
I would certainly encourage him to support it.
Will you be speaking to him in person?
If he wants to, absolutely. And I would say this also to those shareholders, those independent shareholders who voted against the board. Please support us. I want to put this past behind us, and I make the same appeal to Nat Rothschild. Support us. We have a clear plan, and we have a solution here. And there is a high road scenario, and we're very close to that.
And you're confident you'll get the money from the Bakries, this $278 million for this stake in Bumi Resources? You're confident that is forthcoming as well?
Look, I can't speak for the Bakries' personal finances, but all I can say is that $50 million in an escrow account where they can't change the terms of this transaction says to me that's quite a lot of money to put at risk.
And what about this McFarlane report? Will you publish it in full as Nat Rothschild has asked you to do? Can you give us an assurance that you will?
The McFarlane report is still live, so they are looking at a number of issues. It would be foolish to publish that now, like in any investigation that's ongoing. So until we have proven wrongdoing and have sought compensation, absolutely, after that, I have no hesitation in publishing the McFarlane.
And what can investors expect when it comes to pursuing potential claims following the investigation by McFarlane's? What can they expect?
We will have to see. I mean, Mark, these are complex issues. You know, unlike what Nat has intimated, the $1 billion that has gone missing did not occur under this board's watch. Okay, they occurred in primarily Bumi TBK before PLC became invested in that entity. So some of these occurred 5 or 6 years ago. So these are complex issues. They are different jurisdictions, they're different companies. Some of the institutions, individuals haven't responded. But, you know, we are doing everything possible. We met with the Indonesian regulator 2 weeks ago. We are having further meeting with them next week. We've met with the UK regulators. So, in my view, we're doing everything conceptually possible to go after these alleged wrongdoings.
Nick, final question. I'm going to get shot for asking it because we're overrunning, but very quickly, you've been through more as a CEO in a few months that many CEOs have been through in years. As someone who's lived through it, who's gained experience through the voting process, what's the secret? What have you experienced? What's the takeaway? What have you learned very quickly from the last 2 months as a chief executive, as a manager?
I think it's step by step. When there are a lot of bullets being fired at you, focus on what you can do and close down the noise. As they say, you know, there's an expression, the toughened steel has to come through the hottest fire.
You certainly achieved that, Nick. Thank you for joining us today, and do come back when you release results and many times in the future. Nick von Schirnding there, the Chief Executive Officer of Bumi.